Um, we American Jews are reading daily press accounts of our president's latest positions vis-a-vis Israel. Now, on October 7th, President Biden stood firmly beside Israel, pledging support and steadfast right to defend its people and to eradicate the Gazan terror stronghold to secure Israel's future. Since then, in response to pressure from the Democratic Party's left wing, the administration is now demanding a prolonged ceasefire and has a firm and accelerated plan to grant statehood to Palestinians, which to me looks like a reward for having carried out a murderous rampage. Can you give us any insight into what hopefully may be going on behind the scenes that we don't know about, behind closed doors, between the White House and Jerusalem?
So first, I want to thank you for inviting me. It's wonderful to be here. I want to congratulate this beautiful community for celebrating your 30th anniversary. It's a great event. I want to congratulate the honorees. I want to give special thanks to the two co-chairs, to Ronnie Heyman and to Terry Castle, both of whom are very good friends of my wife Shireen, who's here, and myself. And I want to thank all of you for your support and solidarity, which means the world to us in Israel, especially during these difficult times. Before I get to your question, I want to say something about this war. This is the toughest challenge that Israel has faced since its inception in 1948. It is not that we didn't fight wars, we had campaigns of terror, we face a lot of difficulties, but we have never suffered such situation where we are subjected to a massive invasion followed by a massacre of our people. This is the biggest massacre of Jews since the Holocaust, and we are a nation in trauma because of that, and people lost their fundamental sense of security. So we are determined, following October 7th, to remove the threat by dismantling Hamas's military capabilities and its ability to govern Gaza, to rebuild these capabilities and operate them. And we are determined to release all of our hostages, the remaining hostages. We have 134 people in Hamas captivity. Not all of them, unfortunately, are alive. And every day that passes by matters because their lives are in danger. There are people who are in need of medical care. They are elderly. They are young women, and we very much worry about their situation. You can all imagine what kind of abuse they've been subjected to. And we are determined. And if you ask Israelis, they will tell you this war is existential for the state of Israel. Not because Hamas poses an existential threat. No, we are stronger than Hamas. But because if we do not win the war and remove the threat, Israelis will not be able to go back to their homes. And if we do not win the war and remove the threat, Hamas will emerge again, rebuild its capabilities, and strike again, as they are saying they will do, and as they have done repeatedly since they took over Gaza in 2007. And we must win the war because we also know that if we do not defeat them, then Iran and its proxies will be emboldened and be more aggressive towards the state of Israel. As relates to the US and its support, and friends are tested in times of need, I must say that we've been fortunate to enjoy a lot of support in this country. First of all, big segments of the population support us. You hear a lot of noise, anti-Israel, anti-Semitic, but there are many friends and many people who support us. We have enjoyed support on both sides of the aisle in Congress, and the U.S. administration has afforded us a lot of material support, critical munitions, weapon systems. Several times they vetoed anti-Israel UN Security Council resolutions. We had a presidential visit in Israel, the first ever during war, and I was fortunate to accompany President Biden, and I told him when he left, you touched on the heart in each and every Israeli. And they also sent deterrent messages to Iran, to Hezbollah, to help avert escalation of this war into a regional war. That being said, we also have differences. We don't agree on everything. The US administration has questions, has concerns about the humanitarian situation in Gaza, about the collateral damage, about where this war is heading, and some other issues. We are all aware of the pressures here at home and internationally, but I must say that the US administration is not calling on Israel to stop the war. They are not calling for a ceasefire. What they are saying right now is something that we are willing to do under certain conditions, is to give a chance to a deal to release the remaining hostages. And this is our position. Most of them are Israelis, and we want them home under certain conditions, including a temporary pause in the fighting in order to get them out, as we have already done once. We released 110 hostages through a deal. But it doesn't mean a ceasefire. We are not going to go for a ceasefire. We are not going to stop until we defeat Hamas. And everybody knows that, and the US administration knows that. And ultimately, I believe that our job, my job here, is to buy Israel the time, the space, and the legitimacy that we need in order to finish that job.
Thank you, Michael. It would be unfair, I think, to ask you to opine on when this war will end. But as worrisome and brutal as the fighting has been and the loss of life, it is perhaps more frightening to contemplate the war's aftermath. Who will step in to govern Gaza? Last month, former Defense Secretary Robert Gates came to Palm Beach. And in response to this very same question, he asserted that, of course, it will be the Saudis, the Jordanians, and the Egyptians who will step up to govern Gaza. I personally cannot see any indication that anybody on that side is willing to step up and fill the void, and I welcome your thoughts.
So before we talk about the day after Hamas, we have to defeat Hamas. And let me explain to you what we're up against. We're up against the biggest terror complex in the globe. What they have built since they seized power in Gaza in 2007 in the bloody coup is the biggest terror complex. They have an arsenal of they had, up to the war, an arsenal of nearly 20,000 rockets, about 40,000 armed terrorists, and an array of tunnels, 350 to 400 miles of terror tunnels hosting their command and control centers, their top leadership, production facilities for rockets, their arsenal of rockets, and everything they had was there in the tunnels. This is an unparalleled challenge. No army faced such a challenge. When we were about to launch our ground operation, the US administration sent us several US retired generals with lots of experience in wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. They shared with us their experience, and they warned us that we may not be able to do the job because it's too complex, because we are going to lose 20 soldiers every day, and so on and so forth. And we've proven them wrong. So, and let me give you just one example to show you why I say this is unparalleled. The US fought in Mosul against ISIS for 9 months, and nobody stood there with stopwatch saying, when are you going to end this war? Everybody is standing over our heads and saying, when are you going to end this war? It took the US 9 months against 5,000 terrorists, not 40,000 terrorists, and without this whole complex of tunnels that we are fighting, and we are fighting in the tunnels as we speak, because we develop methods to fight inside the tunnels, and we're chasing them there. So this is a major challenge. We are very effective in our military operations. Just to give you an example, Hamas deployed in 24 battalions. It's an army of terror, 24 battalions in Gaza. We have already dismantled 18 of the 24. We have incapacitated over 50% of their fighting force. Their arsenal of rockets is depleted by over 90%. I could go on and on by every criterion. So we are advancing in our war efforts against them, and we are overwhelming them. Now, you correctly asked, as you destroy Hamas, what's going to replace it? And it's not that we haven't given thought to that. We're doing a lot of brainstorming. We have done very thorough mapping out of the forces inside Gaza. We believe that there ought to be a local administration, Gazans, Palestinians who will govern Gaza. We believe there are sufficient forces there who are not Hamas, who are not affiliated with Hamas, who could serve as a nucleus for local administration. They will require a police force that will protect them against the remains of Hamas. They will require a mandate, and we very much want the Arabs to play a role in Gaza, not by sending military forces, because they will not, but they can play a role in financial aid, in humanitarian assistance, in even supporting local governments one way or another. It requires certain conditions to be in place. They have their own terms, but ultimately, if we play it right, I believe that we can create an alternative. Ultimately, we want to see Gaza demilitarized and de-radicalized. So that'll be a model where the schools do not educate to hate Jews, do not educate anti-Semitism content. And I think if we play it right, it is possible.
Well, I hope that you're correct. And one further thing, I'm confused that I haven't seen anything about, and I know Israel has demanded it, but proof of life of the remaining hostages. I don't think we've been able to get an answer, an actual, pictures of our Israelis who are still alive.
So we definitely demanded the proof of life for all the hostages. And at one point, it was agreed that we'll send in medicines to those who need medical care, and it was promised to us that they will receive it. Now, as you know, very recently we released 2 hostages in a very, very daring operation in Rafah. By the way, this is the stuff that movies are made of. Really, it's beyond imagination if you know the details. And those people who needed medical care, and we sent them medicines, never received them. So we have a reason to believe now that what we sent in was not delivered to the hostages. We are doing everything possible to release them as soon as possible. We strongly believe that our military pressure on Hamas will enable a deal. It enabled the first deal. Without our military pressure, we would never have such a deal. And it's possible, and we hope that we can have another one and release as many as possible. We want all of them out. But it's not guaranteed, because Hamas has its own demands. They want a complete ceasefire. They want a complete withdrawal of the IDF from Gaza. They want us to release almost all the prisoners. Many of them are convicted murderers. And that, of course, is so because of that, we're still not in a zone of a possible agreement, but we are pressing and we are making every effort to make that happen. I also want to say that their leadership has surrounded itself with hostages as human shields. That complicates our operation. We're very careful not to hit hostages, not to bring them into harm's way, but we are committed and will do everything possible to release them. Every day counts. Every day counts.
Well, every one of us is pulling for you and for Israel, because today it's Israel, but tomorrow they come for the entire West. And I hope the world realizes that. Michael, I want to thank you so much for your candor and your clarity. And on behalf of the Jewish people in the worldwide diaspora, thank you for your magnificent record of service. And a fun fact is that Michael and I are both descendants of Irish Jews.
That nobody is perfect. But I want to end on a hopeful note, and I want to tell you that people often ask me, what gives you hope? So the first thing that gives me hope is the resilience of our people. The resilience of our society is incredible, unbelievable. There are so many inspiring stories, but it's incredible. I can't tell you how many people called us on October 8th, demanding that we find them a seat on a plane going back to Israel to their units because they wanted to join. So many people, and so many people are volunteering, and the civil society is so resilient, it's unbelievable. And the second thing that gives me hope is the solidarity among Jews. Your support, your solidarity, as I said, it means the world to us, and I take this opportunity to thank you.